Hello, guys, and welcome back to Between the Ropes TV. Today, we've got a very, very special guest. Legendary boxing promoter Steve Goodwin has joined us. Steve, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having us on.
No, thanks for coming on, mate. We're absolutely buzzing to have you on, so it's a pleasure. So we'll get straight into this. And I suppose the first question on my mind as a boxing fan is we always wonder, you hear about, challenging stories that go into promoting a show and getting shows organised. So can you just talk us through that process a little bit? Like how does a show come together?
So basically, for example, we're now planning our shows we've got 3 shows in March. So we're actually planning them now. So what we're doing is 2 things. You've got 2 different types of fighter that's in different parts of their careers. So the first ones are those that you're trying to secure title fights for. So firstly, we then say the fighters like Linus Udofia and Brad Pauls, who are now on bigger platforms. So we're basically negotiating what's going on with them, but that's as a manager, that's not on our show. So as I class myself as a manager who promotes rather than a promoter who manages. So at this point in time, we're just sorting out their next fights. So that should be nailed down within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Then you've got the fighters that aren't yet TV ready. In other words, what I mean is those that TV promoters are not ready to sign yet. And when I say not ready to sign yet, I mean sign with a good contract. You can sometimes get a boxer signed, but the terms of what they're agreeing to are not beneficial. They would be better waiting until they are more desirable. It's just how it is. And too many boxers sign with TV promoters before they're desirable and don't get the right deal. So then you've then got on our shows, and then you've then got the title fights to arrange. So we then get the boys that are ready for titles. We start negotiating title fights, which I think we're going to have over the 3 shows, probably in the region of 7, 8 title fights minimum. So there's a lot of boys near there. So at the moment we're finalising, getting sanctioned bodies to approve them. We're getting the financial deals arranged. So that's what we're then doing. Then with the undercard fighters, which are those fighters that are in development mode, in other words, the traditional ones that are fighting journeymen, we're allocating the shows for them, making sure we don't have too many of the same weight on one show, because otherwise it becomes impossible to match them because of lack of supply of opponents. So that is, as we are talking now, that is exactly what we're going through. We're segmenting the fights, segmenting the titles, and matching those fighters on the undercard to make sure they will match them ready to go for March.
Well, that's really interesting, actually. So I lost my train of thought there. I'm just fascinated by what you're saying. What would you say is like the most challenging part of trying to put a card together?
I don't think it's particularly challenging. I think people make a lot of a fuss. If you're organised and you're well organised as a promoter and you're on the ball, and we are very organised, you've got a good team of people, it's not, to be honest, particularly challenging. It's challenging because if you're incompetent, if you're not organised, if you don't have a skill set of that, if you don't know all your boxers and know where they are, and all boxers should know when they're fighting next year throughout the whole of the year in advance. And it's not difficult. So if you get that sorted out and pretty much your boxers know when they're boxing and you know when you're going to be pressing buttons for titles, to be honest, that's not the challenging bit. The challenging bit is when you're getting 10 days off and people start pulling out. That's the challenging bit. This bit is easy if you're organised.
No, definitely. I mean, I suppose one thing on my mind, obviously, you've had a long career. You've worked with, you just mentioned a couple of names there, like Linus Udofia and stuff. Is there like a particular achievement where you've managed a fighter, or even with the promotional side, that you've thought that's like a career highlight, that was truly special? Like, have you got a highlighted moment or a few?
I think probably, there's loads, right? There's loads. We've had 45, 46 champions. So every champion's special in its own right, because it's a big thing for a boxer to become a champion. So every single fight, whether it be Jack Hughes, who finally won a Southern Area, to Nicola Adams, who won a world title, I managed. So you take the 2 extremes, lowest to the highest titles, they're all very, very special. But I think the one that I take the most personal satisfaction from is probably the Frank Buglioni story. Frank Buglioni had been dropped by Warren. had was basically not wanted by any promoter. They'd gone to every promoter, nobody wanted him, so his career was going nowhere. I took over the management from him. 6 months later, he won the British title, beating Hosea Burton in an amazing fight, and then went on a run where we had a couple of defences before he ran into Callum Johnson's right hand, but the actual resurgence of Frank Buglioni from being nowhere to somewhere, and the second one is probably the resurgence of Wadi Camacho, who, when I got him, had lost, I think, 3 on the bounce, had been done for biting somebody. Everything, it all got. Everybody had said he'd gone nowhere, but I felt that he just needed different training setup, and I felt he needed a little bit of love and care, a bit of TLC, and he came back and he won a Commonwealth title, and he fought for the British and Commonwealth against the Coley, where he was outclassed, right? So accept that. But we got him back and he got that opportunity. So both of those are special moments because you've done something that without me, I don't think either boxer would have achieved that.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's very interesting. Yas, have you? I know you've got some questions. You've been itching for this one all week.
Yeah, well, obviously, we know that obviously you've been involved in the game for quite a long time. What would you say your earliest memory of boxing is?
My earliest memory was before I ever promoted was going to the Albert Hall and watching. I think it was a Mickey Duff show at the time. That would be my earliest memory. My earliest memory was of promoting was the first show we did when I didn't have a clue what I was doing. When I talk about disorganisation, my God, that was disorganised. And we managed somehow to pull it off, cost a load of money. That was at Milton Keynes at the football ground. And that would be the earliest memory of doing it. But we were a fast learner and it didn't happen to us the second time. But yeah, so it's very, very, very difficult. But the memories, you do tend... I think boxing is like the girlfriends. You can have the worst girlfriend in the world, right? And most of us have had them. And you end up splitting up with her. And then years later, you'll go back and remember the good bits and forget the bad bits. And boxing is just the same. It's just the same.
Yeah, well, what would you say your short-term goals, for your stable within the next... I know you mentioned earlier that, you're looking at putting on 3 shows in March, but over the next 12 to 18 months, what would you say, your short-term goals are for your stable?
Well, as a promoter, we're limited, right? Because we've got no TV money. So as a manager, which is what I'm in this job for, as a manager, it's to develop as many of my fighters to become TV contracted fighters, get them with the right TV promoter on the right basis. I've got Lauren Parker, who's probably 2 to 3 fights away from a world title. I've obviously got Linus, who narrowly lost to Denzel Bentley. Many thought he won, some thought he lost, but it was very close. So I want to get more fighters through the small hall process and onto TV. That's really what my aim is. As far as our shows are concerned, I look upon them as just as like the build up, the nursery school. Now, not every fighter is going to be good enough to go onto TV, but those that are not, we hopefully fulfill their dreams and win titles in this small hall zone. But those that are good enough, move them on to the bigger platforms. That's a consistent goal. Nothing ever changes year on year. It's always the same.
Yeah, and obviously we know the difficulties that can happen within boxing for a fighter. Say they're on the come up. What kind of advice from a manager's point of view would you give to young fighters trying to look for a pathway into the sport?
Right. One golden rule: keep your eyes open and your ears closed, because you'll get all the bullshitters whispering sweet nothings in their ear and lying to them, and if they do listen, they'll make bad decisions and their careers will probably be ruined. Surround yourself with very good people and do your research. Don't listen to what people say. Watch what they've done in the past. And speak to people who have dealt with that person, because you'll often find that in boxing you're dealing with a wolf of sheep's clothing, and you've got to be very careful. So do your research. Make sure you surround yourself with good people. Don't change those people when you're 5, 6, 7 and 0 because some bullshitter is whispering in your ear. Keep on a level ground and keep focused. And if you've got good people and trust them, like Linus Udoka is a friend of mine. He's been with me since day one. If you do that, then like Linus, you can reap your rewards.
Yeah, well, that's it. I don't know if you've got any more questions for him, Josh.
No, I haven't. I mean, Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. We really appreciate your
No
time.
problem at all. No problem.
No, brilliant. Guys, we've got lots more great content, so definitely check Steve. There's various social media pages around his fighters as well as himself. Give them a follow. I will drop them in the link. And yep, stay tuned for plenty more content.
Been a pleasure. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers, Steve. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.